Budget and Spending webinar, sponsored by RSM. Thanks to Drew Ferries at RSM, today's sponsor of the event, and hosted by ACEC Illinois. Thanks to Bethany for her hard work in helping put this together. I'm Brian Welker. I'm Senior Vice President, Chief Operating Officer at Crawford Murphy and Tilley, also a member of the ACEC Illinois Board, and co-chair of the Risk Management Committee along with Paula Dixon. We've worked together with Shane Jeffries of the ACEC Illinois IT Committee to put together today's event. Before we start the panel discussion, first I want to walk through a few slides from the ACEC Illinois COVID survey IT trends portion. This was distributed by email to everyone yesterday afternoon. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, a lot of great information that the COVID committee, which is chaired by Paula Dixon from Holmes to Murphy, put out to members, getting input on some of the different trends. The next few slides cover specifically the IT trends. If we jump ahead to the next one, Bethany, as we look ahead to 2021 and the IT budget. I think one of the things we've all seen out there, and for those of you that participated in the national conference, one of the keynote speakers mentioned, and I think they were actually quoting someone else, you look at 2020 and certainly none of us would want to live 2020 over again, do a Groundhog Day on it. But you look at the things we've learned in 2020, to advance our businesses, the technology advances, especially here on the IT and what we're going to be talking about today. There's been a phenomenal amount of learning that's occurred in 2020, and those things that we can take forward, improving how we deliver projects, the things that our clients do, like we're going to learn a little bit from Joe today. Some great learning this year. As we look at the budgets for this year, the majority of firms surveyed, not surprising, will look to increase their IT budgets in 2021. And then if we look at the areas, some of those technology trends on where firms reported that they look to either make software purchases or do additional training next year. If we could advance Bethany to the next slide. You look at platforms like Bluebeam, where you can improve the way you can review online documents and communicate with clients and team members. Security, with more people working remotely, obviously security has become a big consideration to all the firms. And then jumping to the next slide, if we look, collaboration's been huge. You look at the use of Teams, Zoom, WebEx, like we're doing today. I've been on several calls where it's like a testimonial for Microsoft Teams. I know at CMT, we converted our entire phone system to Teams during the pandemic to help, improve the communication amongst our people. And then continuing that training with people. As we look ahead to 2021, the trends that came in from the respondents, the majority, and this changes daily, it could change this afternoon. As we look to where people are going to be and working, expecting to be at 50% or more capacity as we look ahead to 2021. But I think the one thing that we see, throughout our industry is the trend that work from home is going to become more commonplace where it wasn't. If you had asked, if we'd done this survey 12 months ago of firms in our space, many would not have considered work from home or had very limited work from home, where I think going forward, we all agree that we're going to have work from home as part of our solution. So with that, we'll jump to today's panel. The panel, like I mentioned, Shane Jeffries, he'll be today's moderator. He chairs ACEC Illinois' IT committee, new to that role this year. And Shane advanced this idea initially and then worked together with Paula and I as we put it together. We've got Linda Moen, also on the ACEC Illinois board. Linda's going to be providing the small firm perspective. We have Emily Monday from CMT on the panel. And then for the client perspective, we've got Joe Cambridge from the Tollway, the Chief Information Officer. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Shane, today's moderator.
Brian, thank you for the introduction. I'm from Millhouse Engineering. As many of you may know, I'm the new ACEC Illinois IT chair, looking to do many great things as we advance through the times, the challenging times, I should say, and making sure we stay technologically focused as we move forward. I'm going to give each panelist an opportunity to give a little description about themselves, their company, the size of their company, title, role, responsibility, and a little bit of a background on what they've been experiencing and their challenges. I'll start with Linda.
I'm Linda Moen. My company is EFK Moen. We have a little over 50 people in Chicago, Fairview Heights, St. Louis, and Atlanta. We have really struggled this year with a lot of changes. So leading up to 2020, we already had a lot of IT challenges with changing software and changing equipment and a lot of security issues and going to the cloud. But with 2020 in March, we really just dumped all of our plans and started running towards Teams and towards a lot of video conferencing, working from home, a lot of things that we did not have in our budget. So that's kind of where we landed so far. And I think Shane will have a lot more discussion points on that to come.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you for that introduction. Well, let's move to Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily Monday, and I work for Crawford Murphy and Tilley. We're a company of about 350 employees and have 21 offices across 8 different states. So we've got a pretty good footprint going, mostly in the Midwest, but some southern states as well. I am a senior engineer, and I kind of have the dual role of being a project engineer as well as a project manager in our surface transportation business unit. I also am a continuous improvement advocate, working with my colleagues to help eliminate inefficient processes and really foster innovation. And technology is a huge part of that. So that really is part of what we're trying to strive and improve upon. I've been with CMT for 13 years now and had a great experience working on a variety of different projects and a lot of different clients across different states, from large DOTs to smaller municipalities. So really had a great experience getting a variety of different work on the home front, which will also play into my experience as a remote worker as well. I have a stay-at-home husband who used to be a logistics engineer, and I have 2 boys, 7 and 8 years old. So they are definitely in the high energy mode. So that makes working remotely an experience and different every single day.
Thank you for that, Emily. Let's go to Joe.
Hi, my name is Joe Cambich, and I am the CIO for the Illinois Tollway. I've been with the Tollway for 11 years now. We're a company of about 1,300 employees. Our main business is building and maintaining and providing safety for the motoring public on about 300 miles of highway. I'm responsible for all technology at the Tollway. I've been in the technology business for 35 plus years. So I'm the old guy here. My previous experience to the Tollways was really in the financial industry. I spent many years at the Options Exchange, Chicago Board Options Exchange. And I also ran the infrastructure for a couple of the bigger hedge funds in Chicago. So I've had a lot of experience in IT. I guess as far as our challenges over the past months, as with everybody, just dealing with the remote workforce, I think we were in some ways, though, somewhat prepared for it. We did have the foundation built for remote workforce, so it was really expanding on what we had built, but I could talk about that later. That's about it.
Thank you, Joe. And as Brian had mentioned, the whole focus of this was to get a viewpoint from many different specters and lenses. We have the remote user, and Emily, the client side, and Joe, and then the CEO and Linda, just giving a different vantage point to how this has impacted some of your organizations. So my first question is, over the past 6 months, we put every aspect of our business under a microscope. We now know the engineering industry will require some degree of change. Do you believe it will be a small or radical shift in the way the industry operates? I'm going to pose this question to Linda first. Let her share her insight on some of that.
So I think if you'd gone back 5 or 10 years, this would have been a huge radical change for us, and I don't think we would have been prepared for it. But over the last 5 or 10 years, we've had to change so much in the way we work with software, with cloud support available, with a lot of different technologies that, we're constantly rethinking IT anyway. So the fact that we all of a sudden had this disruption that caused us to completely change without much discussion, actually. We just almost overnight got on the phone and started adding LogMeIn software and Bluebeam licenses and things like that. But our staff's really prepared. Fortunately, engineers are blessed because we're so tech savvy. So everyone in the office really picked up on what was happening and did a good job of adapting to it. But cost-wise, I think we're still trying to figure out how much that cost us. But we've been really good at adapting to all the different software changes and training almost continuously. So from that aspect, we probably didn't feel it as badly as we would have if this had been 10 years ago.
Oh, I definitely would agree. If this was 10 years ago, I'm not sure where some of our businesses would be today. But luckily, like you mentioned, us being tech savvy industry, us being problem solvers, that's what we do as a living, it's helped us plan or pre-plan for these type of scenarios. I know at Millhouse, it was a little bit of a radical shift that first week or so, but then once we understood what the change was and we was able to adapt to it, it became, okay, we can do this. We could figure out how to make it work. There'll be some changes, but we can get through it. It's not as bad as it seems. Emily, would you have anything you would like to comment or share related to your experience in the?
Yeah, I think I agree with your comments as well, that it's radical at first when you're first dumped into it. But then I see it as being kind of a flexing of, some tools and tips and things that we already had in place and maybe needed to strengthen ways to collaborate or work in real time and that kind of thing. And I think especially the way that technology has been going in our industry, the rate of change has just been exponential. And so I think that's something that we've gotten used to over the last 5-10 years, is that things are just rolling out and new software is coming out and we're having to explore it in an instant and either jump to it and start the training or figure out what's going to work best for us. So I think that adaptation has really helped us address remote working pretty efficiently.
Definitely agree. The software that's been coming out lately, there's been some leaps and bounds from what I believe was in the industry probably even 5 years ago. With that new trying to get to the 100% alignment and understanding on all levels where we believe the technology we should use, what do you think it'd take to get to that? What initial investments in technology do you believe your organization may either one look into, but then two actually take the step to implement? I'm gonna pass this one to Linda again, because you represent one of the smaller firms in our organization, which play a key part in the ecosystem. But I would like to understand how this potentially impacts your firm.
So 100% alignment, I don't think we'll ever achieve, because as soon as we get close to that, something changes. So I think it's continuous improvement is a great field to be in, Emily, because that's absolutely what we're doing. I think cloud is one of the really good things that we're looking forward to, that's really helping us change. I think high-speed internet, if we can get high-speed internet in as many places as we can. So work from home, we're realizing that some people don't have that available to them. And even in our offices, kind of one at a time, our offices are getting access to high-speed internet, and that has really helped. Any way that we can collaboratively train is helping also. So Teams has really helped us get all of the offices involved in some of those trainings because, again, step by step, different offices are having experience with the new software and they can share it back with others. So all of those tools are really good for us on the horizon. I'm not sure I know what the next one will be, but those are 3 good tools that we're looking forward to expanding and investing in.
Thank you for that input. Joe, would you have any comments or response to that you think you see investments coming in the near future?
I think that just continued enhancement on mobility, improving the end user experience. I think just connectivity and how they connect and making it easier for them, being able to connect from any devices. We continue to just kind of push the edge on security. I can't say enough about the time that we spend on security. It's a major focus. Anything we do is built on security. So I think those are the major things that we're looking at. I think that working from home is actually, I believe we've become more productive, to be honest with you. I think we communicate a lot more. And I just think you work more, right? I just think everybody's putting in more hours. So that's about it.
Joe, you hit on a key point. The working from home is improving production. I want to pose the question to Emily, because you have the project engineer and the project manager experience. Do you feel that you can effectively manage your production on these projects better working from home versus in the office?
I think it definitely has taken a little bit of a process to understand how to collaborate better. It's so easy when you're in the office and you can go have a 2-minute conversation with someone and help figure out where they're getting stuck and that kind of thing. But being remote, you have to make a decided effort to touch base with your colleagues more often, and check in on questions and that sort of thing. But as far as being able to stay productive, I do agree that I feel just as productive, if not more productive. But I think that the trade-off there is missing out on maybe some of those informal activities or those informal connections that we have, kind of the water cooler talk or, just touching base, with your coworkers on maybe something that's coming up on the weekend. I think those informal opportunities that we're deepening our relationships with our teammates is what we're lacking at home. But you get maybe an hour that you might have been spending having kind of those informal communications that now you're actually at home and working and you're getting that time in. There's also the ability for me, I got an hour back each day without a commute, which is amazing. I would not trade the commute, or the lack of a commute for anything. So that extra hour a day, I'm like, well, do I put in an extra hour of work? It's very easy to do that and keep going on work as well. But then it becomes the struggle of trying to find a balance of disconnecting.
That hour of drive time, I agree, is amazing. Who wants to sit in traffic?
I definitely don't miss it.
Not at all. They can keep the traffic for. Linda, how would you measure your organization's capabilities to evaluate this adaptability to like working from home? Or how do you measure that as a leader of an organization?
I don't think I've figured that out yet. So I think what I've been really trying to understand is the mental health and the stress levels of people. How I think when we're in the office all together, those casual conversations relieve stress, help people understand, what the other person's actually saying, and some of the perception that you get when you only have a Zoom conference or an email from people sometimes gets out of line. And I'm concerned about that. I think most of us had a really good relationship before we all went home, but it's been 9 months and we've brought new people on board, and we're not visiting the remote offices as much, and I think some of that is starting to degrade a little bit. So I think we need to spend some time on getting those relationships back, and I haven't been very good at that. I'm thinking I need an HR manager or someone to help me with that. So that's one of my measures. I guess a more substantial measure would be, how are we seeing productivity and billability and our IT budgets? And when you get to those things, we're still adapting and trying to learn because we're not sure what's going to stay in place and what was just a reaction to 2020, what will we really move forward with. Not everybody can have Bluebeam and Adobe. We're trying to, sort some of those things out and figure out what software we're going to actually land with on each person's PC. And then also, do they have a setup at work and a setup at home? How do we handle those hardware questions also? So that there's a lot we're still learning, and those are some of the moving parts we're worried about.
I'm gonna piggyback on your first part of the conversation. I've probably felt like I'm an HR tech now. At our organization, we call it people and culture, because that's where we try to focus our energy with the people developing the culture. But I want to say a huge part has been the emotional intelligence throughout this process, throughout this time. I'm trying to focus on that. I probably have limited emotional intelligence, but now I'm researching how technology can play away burnout or lack of communication, no more face-to-face. You keep your videos on in all your video conference meetings, or what do you do as a culture? That's a great part. I would say also, I'll pose this question to Emily. Do you feel that your organization is adapting to the work from home, or just that model, not necessarily your organization, but as an industry, do you feel we can adapt to working from home easily?
Yeah, Shane, I really think that we can. And I think it really comes down to the people in your organization. And, they're the ones that are going to be on the front lines doing the works. They're the ones that are going to be, working together and trying to collaborate and, figure out how to best get the work done. I know that we've been able to keep everyone busy. We've been able to share the work, even across states or even across units. If somebody's working in a different area, we can get them to understand what we need to get done and still meet deadlines pretty efficiently. But I think it comes to being able to make sure that we're connecting more and focusing on being able to connect more. Video has been huge, absolutely huge, and you wouldn't think so. But when you can't do a face-to-face, if you can at least have video, you can see when somebody is confused, or you can see when someone is maybe distracted and not picking up, maybe what you're trying to convey. And I definitely have seen miscommunications either in too many emails, if it's just word communication, if it's just too many emails and things are getting lost in translation, or they're not able to pick up on your nonverbal cues as far as what you're trying to convey. That can be a huge problem. So that's why that focus on the individuals and the actual person is a huge impact to how we can do work and keep that remote environment just as engaged as you would be in the office together.
I agree. I just, we were so dependent on email. And I think that one thing that this working remote has driven is, I think we communicate more. We have daily meetings religiously at a specific time with our management team. And we go through a number of subjects, and sometimes it's the same subject every day, but just to make sure that everybody's on track. I think we have more meetings now than we did before, just to make sure communication is taking place. and that we're not dependent on email. So I think we are adapting. I know more about probably from the corporate side than I do the people out on the roadway doing maintenance and that type of thing. I think that probably their world has changed quite a bit, just in dealing with customers and help trucks and things like that. But I know that communication has been key for us to keep things going.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Joe, about I believe we have more meetings scheduled in our day than we used to, which is good and bad. Maybe if you know that you've got 3 meetings right in a row and you're not going to get much done in between them as well. But I think you kind of have to schedule in that time to touch base. Otherwise, you're going to get to the end of your day and realize you didn't touch base with your teammates and see how things were going. I heard a great tip that stand-up meetings, to have a stand-up meeting with your team would be great. And what those are is asking 3 simple questions, of each team member is, what did you do yesterday? What are you working on today? And is there anything that you need that is holding up, something that you're working on? And take just a few simple minutes, answer the questions, and then everyone can move on with their day. But at least you've touched base with them and you can immediately know if somebody's getting hung up. That also plays into emotional intelligence. I mean, that's an opportunity to kind of get that, hey, I'm struggling, or, I wasn't able to get anything done yesterday because I had a sick kid or that kind of thing. So I think just taking those few minutes is so important.
I definitely agree. I'm about to take your idea that you just said and write it down, and I'll be doing that in my next couple of meetings. But I did make a similar change. We would have three meetings a week with the team, the IT team. Quick, to the point, almost very similar. What are your roadblocks? Do you have any challenges? How can we be supportive? Let's try and address those issues. And if there's anything on the upcoming 2 weeks that we need to plan for to help move your roadblocks, let's try and get to it. But I definitely agree. That's a great approach, and I'm going to definitely be taking note of that right now as we speak. Linda, I had a question for you. How has meetings and engagements with the technology changed more so from the executive level as a CEO? I understand the perspective from the project manager or somebody more in the day-to-day. How has that changed with you?
So from a CEO level, when I'm talking about like my banker, my insurance, my lawyer, stuff like that, it's only improved. I mean, they were always kind of a remote. The video conferencing has been a great improvement with them, so that's been great. If you're talking about business development, that's a whole different story, and I think everyone's appreciating how creative we're trying to get with it. But I don't think any of this is really what we would prefer. So I think we're all very anxious to get back to lunches and conferences and shaking hands with people that we don't know very well and building a new relationship and things like that that are kind of awkward on video conferences. And some people might not even accept your video conference if they don't know you, but you could walk up to them at a conference and meet a new group of people. I think business development is the hardest. And I think, I won't say we're breaking the rules, but I think we're pushing the envelope on social distancing just to get back to the business development aspects, because that's what I'm missing the most. And those are the people in our office who are trying to get out and not work from home because they know they need to be keeping those connections warm and friendly and not so cold and remote and distant.
I have a follow-up to that. Some organizations, because they're no longer doing the business development, they did some cost management and turned that spend into tech adoption or tech investments. How do you see that going forward?
I think we're going to have to make sure that investment goes back to BD as soon as we can, if that's what you mean. But I think you're right that a lot of the cost savings that people were seeing because of travel, definitely tons of conference travel savings this year. But I think we definitely burned that up in IT. And I think some of those IT expenses that we had were one time. I hope that, we can kind of go back to giving that budget back to the business development side. I don't think we'll have too much trouble with that. But a lot of people are getting more used to some of the software flexibility. We gave them a lot of tech really fast. And if that appetite for tech continues, we might have budget issues in the future.
It could become a little bit of a black hole.
Yeah.
Joe, on the client side, what do you see as the roadmap for not necessarily product specific, but solutions that you plan to implement, and then some things us as your customers or your consultants can implement as well?
So as far as, are you talking about our supply chain and how we manage that and projects?
I would just say more so technology in general. You hit on a key point earlier that you came from the financial industry in your past. Maybe you brought some ideas from how they operated to your industry, and just to help with road mapping and planning.
I think the biggest thing for us is probably going to be continued governance and trying to standardize. I think that we have over time developed kind of a patchwork of systems that have been, some are purchased, some are homegrown. They're maintained by outside agencies. And I think that our direction going forward is really going to be stricter governance and more of an enterprise view of technology, and making sure that what we're developing fits together seamlessly. That we are, I'm a proponent of more purchased products than homegrown, only because when you homegrown is hard to support. And when I purchase a product, or when we purchase a product, lean more towards as little customization as possible. So I think that when you go in that direction, it just makes your environment easier to support. It's easier to secure. Probably one of the, I can't talk enough about security, but probably one of the biggest things with security is just basic fundamentals in IT. Keeping things up to date, patching regularly, and the less you customize your systems, the easier they are to maintain in that way. You can just provide, apply patches. You don't have to worry about customizations that were made, that type of thing. So I think that's really our direction. We do have a lot of different products, and they're kind of patched together. And in some cases, we have redundant products where different departments have purchased products that do the same thing. So I think governance and standardization and moving towards more purchased, uncustomized applications is the direction we're going. I don't know if that helps.
No, that's great to know. As a consultant or an engineering provider for a client like you, when you standardize, it makes it easier for us to understand the direction we need to go with our solutions. When there's multiple different tools being used for different clients, it can sometimes be a challenge. From a project manager standpoint, I could be doing something in Bluebeam today. I could be on BIM 360 tomorrow. I could be all over the place. But with standardizing, there's cost savings that can happen throughout the entire supply chain and ecosystem.
Yeah, and you can start to build economies of scale as well. When you've got diverse platforms, you're trying to support different types of hardware, different types of software. It's all the same. You start to get money back by having things standardized.
And the customization aspect is one I definitely agree with. when you customize, you got to keep up with the customization, break fix on updates from a security standpoint. Is that code built with a DevOps security type of mindset? It's something that's definitely worth, and there's additional costs to maintain customizations. And then even sometimes integrations that are customized between different applications. Those are definitely key areas to focus on and try and stay away from if at all possible. I'm going to change the direction of the conversation just a little bit. I'm going to pose a question to Emily from a remote work from home type of focus. What would you say is the ideal work from home environment to keep you productive, to keep you safe, and provide adequate work-life balance?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shane. I know when I first started working from home, that I was excited that I could be more flexible with my time. I could be flexible with where I was working within the house and that sort of thing, and I could help balance, my family's needs with my work priorities. However, when I was thinking I can be so flexible, and I started thinking about it and thinking about how I work, how each person works is going to be different. What your usual work habits are and your ideal setup is. And I was very used to being in a work environment with few interruptions. There was definitely a disconnect between home life and work life. When I was at work, I was focused on work. When I was at home, switch gears, click the switch, and I'm focused at home. And so being a remote worker definitely is a bigger struggle to get that disconnect and set up your environment so that it's conducive to being able to focus. So I was definitely overwhelmed in the beginning, not having, being able to disconnect. My computer's right there in the next room. I can just log back in and fix that problem that's, nagging at me. Or my sons, when they were doing schoolwork from home, I can just help out for a little bit and then get back to what I was doing. But that, you know, 10 minutes when you change your focus to something else and get back to your work is very hard to, you don't feel as productive, you don't feel as focused and that sort of thing. So I definitely took all of those learning experiences in the first few weeks and adapted my work remote environment so that I was working in a room where I could close a door. My sons would love to come up and just quietly read with me, but that would turn into some giggling wrestling match that is definitely not easy to ignore while you're trying to work or you're trying to be on the phone. So I definitely had a door that I needed to, a room with a door I needed to close. I needed to have a setup. I do a lot of CAD work. And I had to have additional monitors. I had to bring home some monitors, so I had those at home. And I had to be able to have a camera. And I know a lot of people, I was fortunate to have a laptop with a camera, but I know we were setting up a meeting and realized, it didn't even dawn on me, but realized just a few days out that not everyone would have a camera or have the ability to be on camera. And we really wanted it to be interactive. And so we had to think about, making sure everybody had a camera set up as well. It was mentioned earlier about internet speed, and that was something that we definitely had to increase our bandwidth so that we could have better connection to the company network. And how we connected to the company network was a big deal for me as well. I connect through either VPN or a physical remote desktop into a physical machine that's in the office, directly connected to the network. So I started off just trying to connect over a VPN network, but there were so many delays in working with CAD applications. It was not smooth at all. It would take 15 minutes to get into a file, and then it would be horrible if you had to switch files and try to transition. So being able to have a remote desktop and be able to connect to a computer that was physically in the office it was essential for me to be able to keep working. And there's other options I know that we've looked into as well, whether you have a WorkSpot cloud computing where you can, instead of having, kind of double the physical hardware, you could have a cloud computer that you're connecting to and doing maybe some of those higher processes that take a little bit more computing power than what you would have on maybe your laptop or on your actual network as well. So those were really key to making sure that I stayed productive. Brian mentioned before that we switched to the voice over IP, we switched to having our telephone system through Microsoft Teams. And that has been a huge help. I think that has helped us be able to put more focus on having video conversations because you're connecting the same way. So why not just click on your video instead of just having a telephone conversation? It also made it easier to be able to either have that forward to my cell phone so that it's either ringing through the computer and through my cell phone. So if I don't want to answer on the computer, I can pick up my cell phone and connect that way. And then I'm not as concerned about having to call in and check on my voicemail. You know, it's all connected through my computer. So I'm not missing out on communications like that. And then, you know, just some other applications we've adapted to is Microsoft OneDrive and Teams, which has allowed us to have better access to files and real-time editing of those files, and being able to screen share has been a huge boost to productivity and being able to see the same things at the same time. You know, it's not as good as being able to go stand behind somebody's shoulder and help them through a problem, but you're still at least looking at the same thing. You can still be pointing to the same thing on the computer and see what the question is and see how you can best address that situation. So some things won't work for some employees, some things will work better for others. So it's really finding that situation that works best for you and making sure that it also works for the team. For me, that also included setting up working hours that, you know, I worked a certain amount or certain hours, and that's when any colleagues knew that I would be available. I knew that I would be available while they were working to address any questions they had. And then as far as clients as well, you know, they were used to being able to reach you at, you know, during a certain time period. So having those set hours, and I had the ability to do that because I do have a stay-at-home husband. So, you know, if somebody doesn't have that ability and they need to be on different hours, just communicating that and making sure that managers are, you know, respectful of what those expectations are. You know, if they can't log in until the afternoon, knowing that they, you know, giving them time to get going and respond to emails or questions at that time then.
Can you give a quick reminder of your company size?
Yeah,
Employee count?
Yeah, we're about 350 employees across, you know, I forget how many offices, 20 some offices. So we've got a fairly wide footprint that actually lend, you know, pretty well to working and collaborating across, you know, different geographies. So adding in that remote component where everybody's, you know, from home was a bigger stretch. I mean, that's 350 remote little offices now. But, you know, we were very used to having, you know, that connection that we're not physically all in the same location.
And then with economies of scale, you do get some buying power for that. I would pose a question to Linda. Your company's smaller in size. You could probably start off with reminding the people how many people work for your organization. But how realistic do you feel it will be to fulfill some of these work from home, user preferred work environments and making sure they have the necessities to be productive and safe?
Yeah, so we've got 50 people, 54, 57, you know, it kind of depends day to day. But with that, gosh, I think we're still trying to figure that out because some people came in and took their equipment home. You know, that worked okay for some people. We really struggled to get everybody cameras because most of our engineers didn't have laptops. They were almost all using desktops. So when they took their monitors home or whatever, we had to clip cameras onto them. So we were looking for cameras everywhere we could find them. Cameras, headphones, things like that were very hard to get in March and April. So I don't think we will ever get economy of scale. I don't think we are able to negotiate good prices. I don't think, all the crazy licensing agreements and things like that. I think the best we get is a Dell rebate. That's about it. When we buy a lot of stuff, we'll end up with a few $100s of Dell rebate and buy somebody an extra monitor with that. But yeah, that is something we struggle with. It would be great to be a big organization that could get some kind of licensing economy of scale for software for sure, and then even on the hardware part too. But we're nowhere close to that. We're practically buying from Microsoft.
Yes, yes, yes. And then you said software and hardware. You didn't mention security. That's a whole nother beast, of course.
Yeah. I keep hearing Joe say security and realizing I should be talking about that too. Yes, that is a crazy important part of our life. And I guess I'm not savvy enough to know enough about it to discuss it very well, other than even our banker is telling us we need to worry about security. So we've done a lot of security upgrades. It scared us when we sent everybody to work from home because of not everybody's as diligent with passwords. Not everyone's as diligent about keeping other people in the family off their computer. Just different things like that made us very nervous. And you can make some rules, but we couldn't see what they were doing. So there's very little way to monitor what those people are doing with our equipment at home. And most of them are remoting into our system. So our network system, our IT guys were very, very nervous about that. And they do monitor it, but, not as well as when they're in the office. It's a lot easier to monitor those kind of security issues in the office. So we do a lot of, webinars about it and talking to staff about it and trying to remind them and trying to not name names, but, give situations that happened and make sure people understand that it's happening to everybody, that they're not stupid if they happen to have a security breach or something. They just tell us as soon as possible and let us take care of it. So we've been very blessed that didn't become a bigger issue. And I think, again, that's engineers are very diligent employees. I think our industry is blessed to have that. I think it'd be a lot harder in some of the other industries.
Definitely agree. At our organization, we just rolled out our annual cybersecurity training. This one was heavily focused on best practices working from X, because now many organizations have people working all over the country. They've moved from big cities to smaller locations, but just trying to make sure their cyber hygiene is good no matter where they're at. Are they going to connect on VPN? Don't just go to Starbucks and log into their that's happened in the past, and we all probably know it's happened, but just don't go into the communal Wi-Fi. But I would also like to piggyback on this topic. We are roughly 300 FTEs, and then there's always additional consultants, part-timers that play into the mix. The spend is changing. Security, as you heard from Joe, adapting to it, making sure you stay top of line. You don't want to be the organization that's hit with the ransomware to potentially ruin your representation. Just keeping up to date with that, it's definitely been a challenge. We have many individuals that are working from home in our organization, trying to put the solutions in place, like we mentioned, better communication tactics, making sure the operating systems are functioning. I know Emily talked about VPN, remote desktop. I believe Joe, as an organization, they use Citrix for when they're working with clients. Just make sure we have these tools in place to continue to operate no matter where the industry works. It's something to keep up with. Joe, is there anything you would like to add from your view?
I could add a lot about security. I think we've changed our entire view on security over the past years, and that I think we now realize that putting big firewalls in front of your systems and people that work with me on a daily basis have heard this speech many times, so I'm kind of being redundant, but you're not going to be, I don't think that you could ever hope nowadays to keep the bad guys out. I think we've seen that big companies like Chase that spend $200 million a year and have 1,000 people working on cybersecurity have been hacked twice. So I think that the best you can do nowadays is layer security into your systems. You can't add security on. You have to build security into your systems. You have to have multiple layers of securities, including firewalls. You have to have extensive monitoring to determine what your networks look like on a steady state, on a normal day, and be able to identify anomalies that occur in that environment. If something is trying to be taken out or something is being brought in, anything that looks malicious. Even hiring third-party firms that could monitor your environment for you and have 24/7 security operation centers that really can identify what's going on in your environment. I think the weakest link nowadays in security is the person at the keyboard. So, the person that's just going to click on something because they're used to clicking on it. So I think that training does go a long ways. We do, regular training of people. We just had October was Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We did multiple workshops and sent out newsletters, and we even had contests, sending out questions to people. If you answered the question correctly and you're one of the first 5, you got a gift card somewhere. So I think that, you just can't do enough. I don't think that you could ever hope to be bulletproof. Fundamentals are key. Keeping everything up to date, patching regularly, keep your virus protection software up to date. Do tabletop exercises of what you would do if you did have a breach. Who needs to be involved? How is communication going to work? How can you mitigate the breach? How do you stop it from getting bigger and isolated? And then what do you do to not have it happen again? So that's kind of my take on security. It's like you can't do enough. You just can't do enough. It's something you got to stay on top of, and we do spend a lot of time on it. So,
Thank you, Joe. Emily, I'm gonna pose a question to you. Do you feel your management team, from a work from home perspective, is adapting to one of the topics Joseph talked about, communicating security measures, communicating productive measures? How would you like that to potentially be changed, not just for your company specifically, but as a whole with the new work style that you see becoming the new future?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think part of the issue is we get a lot of communication. Sometimes you get communication overload, and sometimes you hear nothing. So we need to, management and leadership needs to find some sort of balance where your employees are noticing what you're sending out or what you're communicating, are taking are paying attention to it, versus having it be too much information all at once. And that's a really hard struggle to figure out how to best get that information out there. And I think that's another struggle, is there's so many different ways to communicate it, that I've heard many people say that they love Microsoft Teams, but please, nobody else create another group that's going to focus on, technology issues or security or just projects, or, there's just so much information. But you want to make sure that they're engaged in what is important and what they need to pick up on. So I love that Joe mentioned, having a little competition, make it fun, and, make sure that, you're still getting the points across, but that you're making it in a way that they understand why it's important. And I think that's something that we also sometimes miss out on is, management, may say something very directly, here's what you need to do, step 1, 2, and 3. But if you don't understand the why as the end user, if you don't understand why that's important, then you're not going to necessarily internalize that as much. You might just say, oh yeah, they did say to do something, but I don't know why. I don't know why that's important. So I think that's key to get across as well.
I agree with you. One of the ideas I've been recently looking into is the gamification of communication. Trying to, as you say, make it fun, put prizes associated with, like Joe said, internal challenges throughout the organization. Something I've been exploring, looking to take to my own leadership to try and see ways we can use these type of ideas to just help cope and do better and improve communication channels hierarchically throughout the organization. Linda, is there something you want to share on this topic?
Just that I don't think I'm very good at it. All the things Emily said, I'm thinking, oh, yes, I know we do that, especially in 2020, because it felt like we should have been having casual conversations with people. And instead, all we were doing was shoving information down their throats and, constant change. And you need to do this. And, oh, my gosh, we're shutting this office down. And everybody make sure you've got masks and PPP and yeah, on and on and on. So I think I think it's something we'll always struggle with, but I really like the idea that we would have Emily on here to tell us that, because that's probably something I'm not doing enough, is asking people, was that enough? Was that crazy? We try to give it to people in several different formats. So we'll do a video conference staff meeting so they're hearing it and seeing us say it, but then we also store that somewhere where they can get to that presentation if they missed a slide or if they didn't realize it was important to them till a week later and they want to go back and look at it. Just, any way we can get information to them easily, because right now everybody's kind of working differently and distracted and not in sync with how we used to communicate anything.
Yeah, and I'll say, Linda, that over communicating is better than under communicating. I know there were times where, it was radio silence and you weren't really sure what was going on. You weren't really sure who to ask about it or who would know what was going on. So I definitely felt safer and I felt connected and less isolated when I was getting continual information, even if it did feel at the time like it was just too much to take in at the time.
Yeah, and I think our staff would agree, because whenever I would have a staff meeting, almost every single person was on that video conference because they just wanted to hear. Was I going to say half the office is out sick, or what was I going to share at that meeting? So I think you're right. They're starved for information.
I definitely agree with you. The all hands on deck meetings have been welcomed. Some people ask me, when are we going to do another one? Just communication. Feed us all the information you can. Sometimes let us decipher what it means, but just give us the opportunity to hear what you have to say. I want to be respectful for everybody's time that's joined us. We're approaching the top of the hour. I want to ask our panelists guests one final question. If you had the power to change one technological aspect of the new norm for engineering industry, for good, for better, what would it be? Anybody can go first.
I'll go first and say high-speed internet. And I think that's not just for our industry. I think that the world needs that.
I would agree with you. I just think now that you're dealing with people at home, and some don't even have internet connections, right? And that's a limitation. Or you're trying to use applications like our remote call center, and you're dealing with issues. You don't know if it's a system issue or it's because they have slow internet connections. So I think that's a perfect observation.
And I'll say that, you know, especially in CAD applications, when we have so much connection to so much data, whether it's GIS data or you know, aerials or all of that, you know, you put all of that data together and you're trying to work with it within a software application, and that application just chokes on it, or your network connection just you know, trying to go back and forth with a task just you know, doesn't work. I think we have all this information. I think we just don't have the technology and software that is able to handle it, you know, at the speed that we're trying to work.
You might just, you really might just look towards solutions like Citrix and other things that really put the processing remotely, and all you're looking at your end is a screenshot and basically you're a keyboard and a monitor to a system that's running somewhere else. So you're really not bringing a lot across the network, and it doesn't require a lot of processing power on the end user side. I mean, you might just consider that.
I want to thank you all for your time and the knowledge you shared to myself and then our viewers, and I guess you can say the entire AEC, ACEC, AE, engineering, construction, the whole industry as a whole, clients all related. This has been great, and I'm going to hand it over to Brian to close us out.
Right. Great. Thanks, Shane. And I want to thank all the panelists, you know, Joe, Shane, Linda, and Emily. You know, great discussion today. You know, some great insights from everyone. You know, appreciate you taking the time. I know there were a couple questions that the panel didn't get to out there. You know, I think one, you know, on the burnout that, you know, I think the HR committee is actually looking on putting something together, you know, talking about those items. You know, the question of how do you get the video turned on? Yeah, I mean, one of the tips or one of the tricks we've used is, you know, going back to college when the professor would call on you when your head started to nod in that afternoon lecture, right? When somebody's camera's off, it's a good time to call on them because you know they're not paying attention, right? So, you know, there's one trick for everybody out there. You know, again, thank you to our sponsor, RSM, Drew Ferries, principal with RSM. You know, Joe mentioned the third-party reviews and security. You know, in addition to the accounting and audit, RSM does have a security and computer side that does consultancy in that area. Actually, at CMP, we've used RSM 3 times now to do security audits. It's good, even though we've got a great internal IT team. You know, bringing in that outside third party, take a look at the network. Do you have security? Do you have holes? And also sometimes the employees, you know, hearing it from a third party, you know, helps that, you know, we can hammer home. You got to change your password. You got to change your password, or, you know, we're going to make you change it every quarter, you know, and not make it simple. But when they hear it from somebody else, sometimes it resonates a little bit better. So again, great insights. I want to thank the committee. Also, thanks to Bethany at ACEC Illinois for putting everything together and getting the WebEx put together. And everybody have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.